Hey guys, my name is Carmel Brown, and I am here to talk to you a little bit about mental health at work. And today I want to specifically talk to people who may be in supervisory roles. I have spoken to, trained, and presented for dozens of corporations around the country, some in person and some virtually, about mental health at work. And in today's climate, it is critical that supervisory and management personnel are aware of how to deal with a employee who may be having a mental health crisis at work, or a supervisor or manager who may be experiencing a mental health crisis themselves. And so it's really important for managerial staff to understand their role and their responsibilities and different response strategies that they may be able to utilize whenever they're dealing with or working with an employee who may be experiencing such a crisis, and just kind of learn how to interact with that individual, how to talk to your employees about it, and also approaches to having a professional like myself to come in to discuss and train your personnel on this matter. And I just want to make it known that about 1 in 5 American adults have a mental illness. And of course, disorders such as anxiety and depression are the most common disorders that people struggle with in our society. But it's really important that we learn how to respond, that we become aware with the signs, and also ways to be proactive while offering support and also services and resources for employees. And very often, managers and supervisors don't know how to respond, or even if they should respond or interact, because they kind of feel like it may not be their place to say anything. They fear that they may say something but completely wrong about what they're assuming or assessing, and not feeling as though they have the expertise, afraid to make things worse, and sometimes just outright thinking it's none of their business. You don't have to be a mental health professional to interact with or support your employees during a mental health crisis. You just have to have enough knowledge to be supportive. And you also have to be aware of stigma and how stigma is perpetuated on the workplace or in the workplace, on the job. And very often there's so many cultural messages that we are faced with, and words that are used that are completely inappropriate. Words like calling someone crazy, or saying someone's a weirdo, or saying someone is nuts. And I could go on and on about some of those very nasty words that we've heard over the years in our society, in media, at work, and also in our personal spaces. And lack of information perpetuates those misunderstandings. And it also results in just having negative attitudes and negative beliefs about an individual who may be struggling with mental health. And for those reasons, we tend to avoid engaging with an individual or an employee as a result. And so overall, what ends up happening is that person ends up being excluded, maybe even discriminated against, because their behavior may be a little different than the average person. And most often, we don't realize that that person may actually need help. And so it just perpetuates the problems that we face even more so. So it's important for us to learn, get past any barriers or any false beliefs or myths about mental health, and learn how to understand and engage with individuals, and also learn when to respond and how to respond. I want to make sure that management personnel are aware that suicide risk significantly increases with disorders such as depression. I want to make sure that managerial and supervisory staff are aware that the risk for suicide significantly increases when an employee has struggled with or does struggle with depression. There's a history of suicidal ideation, suicidal intentions, or an attempt in the past. And that if a person is experiencing a significant loss, or sometimes unbearable or multiple stressors, such as things like financial problems, legal problems, maybe they're facing a divorce, maybe there's some custody issues with their children, things like that. Things that tend to cause shame and despair. Those are things that tend to increase that risk for suicide. So it's really important to remember those things. And in my training on mental health at work, I'll talk more about actions that you can take, how to interact specifically with those employees, and also, once again, how to train your staff on how to interact and how not to interact with a person. And then we'll talk about specific mental health crises and scenarios and such that may be helpful for you and your staff to learn how to handle a mental health crisis at work. So, thanks for listening.